Oh. 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 Hariom and greetings from Niagara Falls. And welcome to the Happiness Series 5, Day 4, which is our completion. When I pick our children up from school, I always ask them, how are you right now? And did you have a happy day? So I'm asking all of you right now, how are you? How are you feeling about the completion of our happiness series? And did you have a happy day? It would be awkward if you said no, that you've been investing so much in the happiness series and you didn't have a happy day. We have been together for almost 5 hours now. Can you think of the last time you were voluntarily with someone for that long? Legally, we have to, financially, we have to, but voluntarily. I had heard about this interesting service in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, society has observed that many people are travel deprived and sleep deprived. You're all thinking, not just Hong Kong. This is where Vivekji, you ask us to list out our city, and we write us too. And so in Hong Kong, they have a new service, which is a 5-hour bus ride. And this bus ride takes you around your city. The people in Hong Kong get to look at Hong Kong or sleep. You're provided with earplugs and a sleeping mask. And this trip costs $50. That one has to pay $50 to see their own city? One has to pay $50 to sleep? As soon as I heard this report, I remembered what Pujaswami Tejomayananda shared with us earlier in the course. I'd never heard it before. I never thought about it. He shared that the most important parts of life are free. Air is free. Good health is free too. Good sleep is free. Love is free. All of the important parts of life are free. And what's fascinating is how much money we spend on love. Like Valentine's Day is such a huge consumer day, as an example. This is why the happiness series is important. To build on the culture of simplicity and support. To remember that the most important parts of life are free. And not just to remember this, but to practice this, which we're doing together. Happiness is free. And when we remember and practice this, we will be freely happy. This is my need for all of you. Not that any of you are asking about how I am, or if I had a happy day, or what I need. But this is what I need from you, to be freely happy. The focus of this year's happiness series is our lifestyle. It is what we are doing every day, because every day makes up our life. Are you proud of your lifestyle? Give me a thumbs up if you're proud of your lifestyle, a thumbs down if you're not. Okay. I'm waiting for one of these. Do it. Just do it. Okay, let me intensify this. Would your parents or guide be proud of your lifestyle? I see way less confidence now. See how low our expectations are of ourselves. Only when we accept that our lifestyle is not ideal. Of course, our lifestyle is good. The fact that you're here on day 4, we're approaching 6 hours together by the time we complete, shows that your lifestyle is good. But if we accept that our lifestyle is not ideal, then we will adapt. Without acceptance, there is no adaptation. And this happiness series has provided much content on how we can adapt. When you were all joining in, there was a screen that was scrolling with different quotes. And one of the quotes that I came across was, day 1 or one day, you decide. Day 1, are you going to practice today, tomorrow, or one day? You decide. This reminds me of, and I remember sharing this with Puja Swami Tejomayananda, and he was laughing so hard. I was in Columbus once, and I was facilitating a satsang like this. And I felt everyone was inspired. I felt. And so at the end, I shared with everyone, like a inspiration cry, we can. And everyone raised their hands, we can. I said, we will. Sorry. We must. And everyone said, we must. And then I said, we will. And one seeker student in the front goes, we wish. Here I'm looking for support that we will, and he's saying we wish. Adapting our lifestyle. On day 1, we explored that which is more physical in nature, how we're living. And we entitled this Satsanga. The reference I shared with everyone, that is, the historical and philosophical precedents, Binu Satsanga, Bebeka na hoy. When we bring our bodies to other bodies that know what's important, then we start to practice inclusivity. And specifically, I had shared with all of you, suggested to everyone, 1 hour a week, listen to noble people. 1 hour a week, read noble people's ideas. And a point here to reflect on more, the more vulnerable one is, the more careful one must be about what they're inputting. That would be the case with the coronavirus vaccination, correct? For those who are mature physically, like myself, I can even get a booster shot, but for our younger son, who's only 2.5, he can't even get a child dose yet. Agreed? It will overwhelm his system. At least that's what science will share. Because he's more vulnerable, one has to be more careful. So what you read, please don't take that casually. And 1 hour a week, watch. Watch your own ideas. And I gave you the visualization of a post office. Yes. When you go to collect your mail and you see mail from utility companies, do you excitedly go and open those? Can't wait to see what my gas bill's like. But if you actually see a letter from a family member or a friend, or you see a package of some sort, that's what you open first, correct? So if they're negative thoughts, keep them closed. And if they're positive thoughts, what should you do? Open them up. So an hour or two, listening to noble people, reading noble people's ideas, watching noble ideas. Summarizing day one, Jaise Sangha, Vaise Ranga. It is by your association that you are colored. In other words, influenced. Those who practice what I've shared, you will find that physically you are nurturing calmness. Day two, we're adapting our lifestyle. We focused on going deeper from the body, which is physical, to the mind, which is mental. This is not how we live, but where we live. We live in our minds. And so the Sanskrit word that we focused on was sattva. And the reference I shared from Mahabharata, urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha. When we remember sattva, we start to practice integrity. Integrity within our own selves. And the suggestions that I had made give 1 hour a week to walking. This was in reference to space. When you walk in nature, then you feel more natural. To give or practice 1 hour a week to researching how you can donate. This will help one to feel lighter. This is in reference to matter. All we need to afford in our lives is what we need. There is a danger in being able to afford what you want, because you'll probably flirt with that. But if you can only afford what you need, that is a very simple and light way to live. And practice 1 hour a week to unitasking. This will help one to feel better. If you're absorbed, you're keeping your head and hands together, you have no bandwidth to be distracted, which means you won't compare, which means you won't feel jealous, which means you won't feel insecure. These are very powerful practices. The evolution from inclusivity to integrity. Sociologists have observed that the two qualities that we're attracted to in another person is authenticity and depth. Integrity is where I have less external support, and now I'm trying to support myself. I'm trying to make my mind closer to my intellect. And if you're doing this, if you're practicing this, you will find that your mind, there is more quietness. Physically, calmness. Mentally, quietness. Day 3, from inclusivity to integrity to ideally. In Sanskrit, Satya. The reference I shared, Satya Shila Drida Dwaja Pataka. This is from the Ramayana. I'm alternating Ramayana, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and soon I'll share with you from the Mahabharata. This is not about how we live or where we live, but why we live. I cannot overemphasize how important this why is. For those in Meaningful Mornings, I keep sharing the same message again and again and again. I think I've been sharing the importance of why for 535 mornings. Why do you live? And to bring about ideals, the ideal of ahimsa or sensitivity. When we remember this, then we practice. What do we practice? 1 hour a week, making plants our ideal. Brahmacharya, which is discipline. That's another ideal. How to practice this? 1 hour a week to make mornings your ideal. When we direct ourselves, we conserve energy. If you're feeling tired right now, I doubt it's physical. Most of us sit in comfortable arrangements like I'm sitting in right now. But if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling exhausted, why is that? I'm going to guess that there's a lack of purpose. Purpose pulls performance. If my purpose is shallow, my performance will be shallow. If my purpose is deep, my performance will be deep. Direct who you are to conserve energy. And satya. Satya means truth. When we remember this ideal, how can we practice this? To make guides our practice an hour a week. The performance review that I had suggested to all of you. Many of us are fascinated by shows and books about other people's lives. If you rewind 25 years ago, I don't think reality TV or reality shows were as popular as now. Is that a fair statement? The only reality shows that I remember back in the day were like game shows, like Wheel of Fortune, or Family Feud at most. Or those shows where you had to find some sort of treasure. So they'd put a couple in a room and they have to move everything around to find a key of some sort. But that was more of a fantasy, correct? Who actually lives like that? But we're so into reality TV, reality shows. Why? Because we don't want to look at ourselves carefully. It is much easier to give advice than to follow advice, correct? And that's why these ideals, practicing with plants and mornings and guides, this is all about knowing you more, knowing the why of your life. And if you are practicing this, intellectually, you will feel more stillness, calmness, quietness, stillness. And now day 4, we're continuing on our journey. I described what we're doing as a yatra. Even though there's an outward expression, time is moving in a linear way, one is to move inwards. From inclusivity to integrity to ideally to infinity. Isn't this awesome that we have an entire workshop dedicated to infinity? The only infinity we know is mathematically or spatially, scientifically. This infinity has nothing to do with that. We're moving inwards. Infinity is not the how you live or where you live or why you live, but what is life? What is life? In Sanskrit, Sat. And the reference from the Mahabharata, from Bhagavad Gita, is chapter 17, verse 26. 1726. I know all of you are writing this down, and I know that you're engaged in further study of these references, yes? Shri Krishna shares with Prince Arjuna, Sadbhava, Sadhubhave cha. Sadbhave, Sadhubhave cha. Which in English means Sat Bhava, the one who feels infinite. Then what happens? Sadhu Bhava, they treat all as infinite. That's shared in 3 words. Can you believe that? The one who feels infinite treats all as infinite. That is an amazing teaching for all of us. How can one feel infinite? This is only possible through insights. In Sanskrit, we would call this jnana. We, by ad hoc living, randomly, cannot feel infinite. There's a lot that we can feel randomly, living in an ad hoc way. Like if I told all of you, come to Niagara Falls, which I am telling you, if you had no GPS, no map, eventually you'll make it here, correct? But would the same happen with infinity? So I'm going to share with you a lighter insight into infinity and then specific insights, okay? These insights are to help us feel. Feel what? If my lifestyle starts off being more inclusive, being more integrated, being more ideal, the completion of all of this is for my living to be oriented with life, which is infinite. Many of you have heard me share this before. What are, and don't write this in the chat yet, what are the 3 fundamental fears all beings have? What are the 3 fundamental fears every being has? Reflect first. Some of you are thinking, being asked this question. Sociologists have shared that the fundamental fears humans have are death and public speaking. Death we can all agree to, but public speaking, that is quite variable. There's some people, when they're given a podium and a microphone, you can't take them away from that. There's some people you can't push into that. I remember being at one reception and the father of the groom was speaking and speaking and speaking. And so finally the groom kind of went up to that father and was trying to share, you should finish now. And this father said in front of everyone, I paid for this reception. I'm going to speak as long as I want. I started listening more carefully then. So public speaking, that is highly variable. So I disagree with sociologists. The three fundamental fears that all beings have is fear of death, fear of the unknown, and fear of sorrow. This is a lighter insight, even though it's amazing, but a lighter insight into infinity. I'm building up on this. Death, unknown, and sorrow. Next in this line of thinking is, who do you fear the least? Who do you fear the least? You fear yourself the least, irrespective of how you look in the morning. When you go into the bathroom, it does not frighten you. Because that's you. There's a oneness with the body, mind, intellect. Now I'm approaching this from a spiritual perspective. So you fear yourself the least, which means any fear that you have will only be of that which is different from you. You will only be afraid of that which is different from you. Yes, I gave you a crass example of how you look in the mirror, but just extend this to driving in your own city is less fearful than driving in a city you don't know, correct? Because it's your city, you feel a oneness with this. So now, if you fear, and you do, death, unknown, and sorrow, what does that say? What does that insight mean about you? If you're afraid of that, then that means that's not who you are. You are the exact opposite. What's the opposite of death? Sat, or existence. And the opposite of unknown? Chit, or awareness. And the opposite of sorrow? Ananda, or joy. If we can adapt our lifestyles to go from inclusivity to integrity to ideally, we will rediscover that I, you, all are infinite. Sadbhave, sadhu bhave. And if you have this insight, this feeling that you're infinite, how will you treat others? As infinity. There's a common saying, treat others as you want to be treated, correct? But what is the logic of that? Here's the logic of that I've shared right now. Now I'll share some heavier insights, okay? These are more for you to reflect on. You have an entire year to reflect on them, okay? Until the next happiness series. And for all of these, I'm not giving you 1 hour practices. I'm not. I've already completed that with 9 hours. I'm not giving you more hours. Starting with, why are you Sat? Why are you existence? You can, let me give you an example. What is this called? Pencil. What is the shape of this? Pencil. The name is pencil, the shape is pencil, it feels like a pencil. That's hilarious because it's a pen. See the Maya. We can call this by different words, pencil or pen. It can go into different forms. I can probably break this in two and the front part will still work. But what about the existence? I can deny the name, I can deny the form. Can I deny the existence of this? Can you deny your own existence? Have you ever experienced your non-existence? All of you are saying yes. Tell me, how was it? How did you feel not existing? If you're feeling it, you're existing, correct? Existence is infinite. None are outside of infinity. That means you. On to chit, or awareness. How many of you are awake right now? I have to check, cameras off. Let's see. How many are awake? When you're awake, your awareness is of your body and mind. When you're dreaming, do you know how much you weigh? Do you know what gender you are? Do you know what color your hair is? When you're dreaming, you're only aware of the mind. You do know what you're dreaming about, yes? What about in sleep? In sleep, we're not aware of the body, we're not aware of the mind, but we are aware of the absence of the body and mind. Which is why when you wake up, what are the two quick emotions that happen when your alarm clock goes off? Anger. Anger and almost shock, because you felt like you just closed your eyes and now you open your eyes. Yet 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours have passed, correct? This shock is, you know you slept well, but who knows that? It's not the body. It's not the mind. There is a facet of you that knows the absence of the body and mind. And when the body and mind come back, we just verbalize it. I slept well. I wish I could sleep more. That awareness can never be denied. And again, even if you're denying awareness, aren't you doing it with awareness? And ananda, or joy. When you're feeling frustration, fear, hopelessness, etc., what do you do? Let's just take frustration. When you're frustrated, please share with me in the chat. What do you instinctively do when you're frustrated? We let it ferment to become anger. That's the collective response right now. You cry, you give up, you chant, you isolate, you lash out, you drink yogi tea, correct? You do whatever it takes to escape from it. Nobody wants to feel frustrated or angry, etc. Now let's go to the opposite. When you're feeling calmness, quietness, stillness, then what do you do? What do? You smile, you embrace it, you do nothing. And unfortunately, finally a thought comes that I don't want this to go away. And it goes away, correct? But when you are happy, you don't want to do anything, you don't need anything. Why? Because you're embracing that which is natural. You escape that which is unnatural, you embrace that which is natural. Have you ever had a day where you were too happy? How was that day? You can never be too happy because your nature is infinite existence, infinite awareness, infinite joy. So I shared some lighter insights on how fear is actually teaching us about Sat, infinity. And I shared some heavier insights about not being able to deny existence, that even when we're sleeping, there's awareness, and how we embrace that which is natural. The word Rama from Ramayana means joy. And the word Krishna from the Mahabharata means the one who attracts. So Rama is joy, Krishna is attracts. In another historical, philosophical map, this is called Bhagavatam. Many of us are navigating this together. There's a chapter that essentially describes a day in the life of Krishna. And his day revolves around 4 practices. In order, number 1, dhyana or contemplation. Next, this is all sequential, is dhamma or devotion. Next is dana or donation. And the last is dharma or profession. As soon as Sri Krishna wakes up, and do you remember what time he wakes up? 4 a.m. He wakes up at 4 a.m. and he engages in contemplation, then devotion, then donation, then profession. If we want to attract joy, which means if we want to be joyous, then we should live like Krishna. And this workshop really was designed around this, but in a more 2021 way. And with this final sharing, we've completed our last discourse for this year in the Happiness series. And we're continuing to our dynamics. We have experienced dynamics on managing space, matter, and time. And I hope all of you have connected the dots. What is the best way to manage space? This should be based on needs. What is the best way to manage matter? Have matter you need. What is the best way to manage time? Engage in what you need to engage in. Yesterday, in terms of time management, some powerful insights were shared, like, without a purpose, you will never manage. Correct? It's like some of our homes, unless someone comes to our home, why would we clean it? It doesn't make sense, correct? And how we should have limits on our apps, which is quite sad, but if it works, then we should have that. Throughout our workshop, I'd shared that there's 2 components to our workshop, which is to be active and to be diverse. Our presenters were from San Jose and Raleigh and New York, so diverse, and to be active. Now, I am going to find out how active you have been. We're going to begin our pariksha, which in Zoom language is a poll. Everyone on YouTube, I will read slowly, but better is if you join us through Zoom. On your screen, a poll will now appear. I'm going to read all of this, and you have to vote as in answer the questions. There are 10 questions that have been spread out over the past 4 days of content. So start answering. What is the culture of the Happiness series? A, activity diversity. B, simplicity support. C, eating, drinking. And D, which is a very good answer, Pearl Jam. You can all answer this, correct? You have that facility to answer? I don't see any of the percentages growing. Okay. Number 2. Viveka is knowing A, what is inclusivity? B, what is Instagram? C, what is important? D, what is investing? Number 3, the one who introduces you to satsanga is your A, worst friend. Some of you are thinking that, who are joining on day 4, why did I listen to my friend right now? B, dating consultant. C, own mind. And D, best friend. Number 4, space that integrates makes us feel A, natural. B, light. C, better. And D, dizzy. Number 5, what is the name of our community's environmental movement? A, tree huggers. B, Prithvi Seva Sangha. C, soul seekers. And D, Bhumi ambassadors. Number 6, what does Purana mean? A, tasty bread. Purana, Paranta, it's all the same. B, historical, philosophical. C, old people. And D, ancient, applicable. Number 7, practicing brahmacharya is making your ideal A, pickles. B, plants. C, mornings. D, chanting. Number 8, what percentage of our week is 9 hours? A, too little. B, 5%. C, too much. And D, 9%. Number 9, what is one of our fundamental fears? A, politics. B, discourses. Whoever answers that, you know I can see that you've answered that. Yes? C, sadness. And D, fear. And number 10, gratitude should naturally express as A, luck. B, introversion. C, shopping. And D, generosity. Everyone gets 1 more minute. This is like college, just guess. 80% of you have now completed your pariksha. Last 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we'll end the poll now. This will be shared with you, I think. I have no idea what our crew is doing right now. I'm just imagining things. That this is a pencil. What is the culture of the happiness series? It is B, simplicity and support. Simplicity helps us to remember. Support helps us to practice. 70% of you had this correct. I'm glad one of you chose Pearl Jam. That is an equally good answer, for which you get a mark for both of those. Viveka is knowing. C, what is important. I had shared that Viveka is the one who knows what's important, the one who prioritizes. What do they prioritize? Inclusivity. But in this sequence, it's one who knows what's important. 3, the one who introduces you to satsanga is your D, best friend. It is through that introduction that our lifestyle begins to change. Number 4, space that integrates makes us feel A, natural. When space is clean, simple, and inspiring, we just feel more natural. It's like after having taken a shower, you feel more natural. Number 5, what is the name of our community's environmental movement? I'm glad 2 of you chose tree huggers, but 92% chose Prithvi Seva Sangha. Sangha means community. Seva means to serve. Our community is to serve. Serve what? Prithvi. Raja Prithu treated the earth like his own child, which is why the name Prithvi has come about, that we should treat this earth like our child. And if you don't have a child, then like you're a parent you love. Any entity you love, okay? Number 6, what does Purana mean? D, ancient and applicable. Number 7, practicing brahmacharya is making your ideal C, mornings. Number 8, what percentage of our week is 9 hours? Lots of interesting guesses here. 9%? How did 12 of you choose 9%? You only have 100 hours a week. It is B, 5%. And the implication being is we only have to change 5% of our lifestyle, and this will become a means to infinity. Number 9, what is one of our fundamental fears? Sadness. That is C. And number 10, gratitude should naturally express as D, generosity. And that is complete. Please share your score. If you're courageous enough, please share your score in the chat. Wow, many 9s. And I have seen the 10s also. I think this is the highest scores I've ever seen in any sort of poll, which shows how active you were and are, that you've tuned into the components of our workshop. We continue with dynamics. We're now going to have a discussion. And in this discussion, you're going to be in groups of 6. I'm checking in with our team that this is possible. Okay, here's your discussion subject. And wait till you join the discussion because there's a process. Why is being happy hard? Why is being happy hard? Be open about how you feel about this and be respectful about others. Why is being happy hard? Don't make this theoretical. Why is being happy hard for you? After you share, I want you to read the contract that you developed based on your RAD from yesterday, correct? I had asked every one of you to design an ideal day or week and to sign it. I want you to read that contract in brief to your group. And if it's too long, don't share it. Just show the signature. Okay? It's like when Apple updates this computer and I have to click on, I have read the terms and agreements. Yeah, right. I've read the terms and agreements. You don't let me go on without having clicked that box. So I want you to show everyone that signature. Okay. So accept the invitation, share, and share your contract. Click on the blue button, which says join. This will be for 5 minutes. This is an interesting experience because it's still being broadcast to YouTube. And that's all fine, all fine. I'm still being highlighted screen-wise, but everyone on YouTube and everyone who's watching this recording will have a laugh at this observation right now. Please bring everyone back at 9:25. Welcome back. Why is being happy hard? It's not. And the vision of our discussion was for everyone to come together more, to come to unity. You've naturally experienced me, you've experienced our presenters. Now you got to experience each other also. Dynamics complete. We continue to our dialogue. Everyone, please check out Slido. There are 22 questions. I'm going to try for half. The first, from Aruna, from Princeton. How do you plan to organize and make time for living with nature when you're trying to manage kids' classes and work during winter? Your guidance, please. Anything important that you want to do, especially for your evolution, do this in the morning. Contemplate in the morning, plan in the morning, exercise in the morning, etc. This is your own time. And that can be walking in nature also. And you do live in a cold part of North America. Maybe you can't walk, but you can sit in nature. You can sit looking at nature. Eventually, you're going to have to start to shovel your driveway. That can also be a walk in nature. On days when I have to shovel, I don't exercise on those days because I treat that as my exercise in nature. And a lower perspective to this question. Anything that we want to do, we will find time for. Do you all agree with that statement? If you want to watch a movie, if you want to sleep in, etc., whatever you want to do, you will find time for, in which case there will be less annotating. So organize your day better. It's already good, but organize it better. And what will help you to do this is to really want to walk in nature and many of the other practices that I've shared with you. Anonymous from Anonymous. How do I work on dealing with this feeling of constantly being taken for granted? The higher perspective is be independently joyous. A seeker in our community, her family made this bookmark for me. They painted this together, so I always keep this near me, that I may share this and that with all of you, but this is what I have to practice. If you're independently joyous, what happens is you start to give and give and give, but you're never depleted by it. Those who are independent, they can give without being depleted. The lower perspective to this feeling is for you to communicate that you're feeling you're being taken for granted. I'd shared that in the workshop too. Over-communicate, to share how you're feeling with another. In our marriage enrichment workshops and retreats, one of the exercises that I facilitate with couples is on a sheet of paper, they have to write down what pleases them, and on the other side, what displeases them. And these are smaller, more lifestyle matters, like turning on the dishwasher when it's full makes me happy as compared when it's not full makes me unhappy, stuff like that. And then you're supposed to give that sheet to your spouse because they may not know that this pleases you or displeases you. We're all so busy that we don't have this time to commune. So communicate with them. Next. Anonymous from Anonymous. What do you recommend to do when we have to interact with people who do not align with our value system? Sadbhave, sadhu bhave. Feel infinite and treat all as infinite. The higher perspective is for you to feel that every relationship you have is a form of training. And when you align with those who have the same value system, that training is easier. It's like going downhill on a bike. And when you have to interact with those who don't have the same value system, that's also training. It's like going uphill on a bike. But in both cases, it's good for your health, physical, mental, and so on. My lower perspective is make sure you're strong enough to be able to be with any sort of value system, which means you first have to associate with those who are noble. There's so many layers to this workshop. Like if I reference Bhaja Govindam right now, Satsangatve, see how that begins and takes us all the way to the end. You make yourself more secure. That way, when you're with people who don't have the same value system, they influence you less. You're less vulnerable then. Next, Avni from Alpharetta. How do you learn to trust yourself more? The higher perspective is to be sincere about joy. That way, a guide comes into your life who will have more faith in you than you have. That's the magnificence of a guide, is that they know your ignorance. I had shared that this morning in Meaningful Mornings, and they know your strengths also. And that faith in you will help you to have faith in you. Next is my lower perspective, is for you to remember all that you've accomplished in your life rather than what you've not accomplished. If you reflect on the fact that you made this friendship, you created this project, you've helped your family in this way, when you remember your successes, it helps you to have the enthusiasm that you can be successful moving forward also. If you all think of this community, when we started it was April of 2020, when I had just finished Magical Mantras 2. And at that time, our community had raised $12,500 for a youth shelter here in the Niagara region. Remembering that, we kept on taking up more projects and more fundraising, and we've completed this at $500,000 in 18 months. But if we forgot what happened with Magical Mantras 2, that first $12,500, there's no way that we would have aspired for doing much more. Chris, not sure where from. Lots of Chris's joining us. What is a good book for a young adult to start reading to start this process of self-reflection? Self-Unfoldment. This is a book by Pujaswami Chinmaya. Self-Unfoldment is my suggestion to you. Based on this workshop, if this young adult is less of a reflector but needs more lifestyle changes, then maybe the Reflection Adventure of the Week workbook, because it is very practice-oriented. And once one starts to practice, like sleeping earlier and waking up earlier, then they want to practice more. And that's where one can build into more reflective books like Self-Unfoldment. Next, Vaidehi, I believe you're from Kansas. How can a teenager benefit from this? I appreciate your openness about how the last 6 hours that I've shared are not clearly beneficial. that I should be more specific about how you can benefit from this. My higher perspective is just seeing everyone smile. Did you interact with strangers who were smiling the entire time today or this week? This is why when our children are around, I want them to come and see you. I don't do this so you can see my children. Oh, and I can fondle them in front of you. It's so they can see you. They can see that this is their family. There's so many uncles and aunties and brothers and sisters. So being in this community is a benefit. Next, the lower perspective is maybe one insight has been shared that is challenging you. Like I had talked about, how if the insight I shared about how we're so fascinated with other people's lives, if that applies to you, then that's a challenge to you that you're escaping from your own life. And then that becomes the seed to go deeper into reflecting and practicing. So you may hear something that will move you. When Pujaswami Chinmaya would have camps in Siddhabari, these were international camps taught in English, but while this was going on, a Vedanta course in Hindi was being facilitated by Pujaswami Tejomayananda. And Pujaswami Chinmayananda told all of those international campers, you have to attend this Vedanta course class in Hindi. And many were mumbling that, we don't understand Hindi, or he could just read it in people's eyes. And he shared, Pujaswami Chinmayananda, that many of you will not know what is being taught in this class, but every once in a while, you will hear a word that you do know. What is that word? All of you are still thinking, what is that word? Rama. It's a Ramayana class. The word Rama is going to be used, correct? What else is there to hear in the Ramayana other than Rama or joy? Anonymous from Anonymous. See how tricky all of you are? We started with 22 questions. I keep answering them. We're still at 20. Vivekji, could you give us a framework or a daily schedule on how we can incorporate the time for satsang, sattva, and satya daily? Perhaps this question was asked before I started sharing the 1 hour a week, perhaps. I don't know how much more specific I can get. Walk in nature, buy Nike running shoes, put on socks, tie your shoelaces, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. What else can I say? Take up any of these practices. I even highlighted some in my own notes in case this question came. For satsanga, 1 hour a week to listening. Even if you forget about the other two, 1 hour a week to listening. For sattva, 1 hour a week to unitasking. And for satya, 1 hour a week to plants. So even if you find that 9 hours is too much, reduce it to 3. Pick one from each. Anonymous from Anonymous. How do medical professionals deal with moral injury of taking care of patients who make choices of not getting vaccinated, not wearing masks, etc.? That's a sad question. It's sad that you have to ask that question, that that's actually happening. The higher perspective here is none of us are the original or final healthcare providers. It is the creator who's also the conserver, the one who conserves health, the one who controls health. And when I remember that, then if someone comes to me who is vaccinated or not vaccinated, I am just an employee. I am just a servant of the original physician. In our culture, there's a specific name for that. Dhanvantari. That's how much clarity there is about we are not the original healthcare providers. So I am only supposed to do what is my responsibility. The lower perspective is you stay healthy physically, mentally, etc. And while you're doing so, try to educate the patient that you have to deal with so that they become an ambassador for further education. It's like all of you who are passionate about self-development, then you actively invited your family and friends to be part of this, correct? You're an ambassador of this self-development. So to do the same in terms of healthcare. There are 18 questions left. These 18 questions will be answered in meaningful mornings. We're shutting down Slido so that you can't keep asking more questions. But in meaningful mornings, and details about that will be shared with you in the chat right now. On Saturdays and Sundays, we have 2 more sets coming up. I will answer all 18 of these questions. We will have freedom talks this Saturday, Sunday, and the next Saturday, Sunday also. I'm shifting over to announcements. On day 1, I shared announcements on liking and following our social media, especially YouTube, because you'll know when the recordings from the Happiness Series 5 are going to be released. And right now, I have planned for our next communal workshop like this to begin on Tuesday, April 5th, where I will continue with Why Do We, which is focusing on our samskaras, or how to live more intentionally. Half of these I've covered. I believe they're on Chinmaya Mission Niagara's Facebook recordings. The next half I will take up in April. So if you like and follow this media, then you'll be in tune with all of this. On day 2, I shared details about all of our publications. And I do have a copy of Traditions. Remember, I told you it's upstairs. It's so beautiful. And what you may not know is that all of these publications have been mostly, and when I say mostly, I want to say more than 90% have been facilitated by our young adults. So these publications are to provide projects for them to direct themselves. If you think of all of the other publications you have, how old are the people who produce that? And if you know the ages of those who produce this, it's very inspiring. Yesterday, I shared an announcement about if you're feeling dakshana or gratitude, to express this as dana or generosity. How many of you were able to pay off a student loan? How many of you were able to pay off a student loan in your life? Wasn't it an awesome day? Didn't you go and spend more money that day? How many of you were able to pay off your mortgage in your lifetime by show of hands? Isn't it a different feeling coming into this home freely? This is what our community in London would like to feel, this freedom of not having any debt. And they had shared with me that many seekers have already been donating generously, which I'm appreciative of. And remember, it's the end of the year. The more you donate, the less the government will take, okay? You benefit, we benefit. And now today's announcement. One of the greatest challenges that I have ever gone through in my life, and I'm sure most of you can relate to this, is having children. And I don't mean the physical process, I mean raising children. Perhaps that's a better way to describe this. And I feel that parents need more simplicity and support being parents for their children. My wife and I are beyond bhagya. Sheila's self-employed. I'm self-volunteering. We live in a small city, the forest. Remember I told you that forest compared to a city, compared to money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able to wake up with our children. We're able to read to our children every day, drive them to school, and on and on and on. That simplicity and support is so strong because of grace in our family. And I feel all families don't have that privilege. And so one of our crew members, his name is Ricky, and he has been the catalyst to Chinmaya Mission Niagara's website also, which so many of you engage in so many ways. He is facilitating a organization called Cool Kids. And this is to help parents, to help children, to help communities feel this simplicity and support. So Ricky is now going to share with you some of the vision and mission behind Cool Kids. And all of you, please listen carefully and be part of this. Ricky, share away.
Hari Om Vivekji. Hari Om everyone. Thank you, Vivekji, for the opportunity to speak today. I've had opportunity to know Vivekji for over 11 years now. In fact, it was December 2010 when I first got to see Vivekji. And since then, Vivekji has been part of my life as a guide across many decisions, across many difficult moments. Last year, I had this struggle of balancing work and life and trying to find that integration of purpose. And that's where Vivekji shared the guidance of pursuing this idea of serving children, serving parents. And so came to life this idea of Cool Kids. It's meant to be cool, but it's also cool as in the community. So Cool Kids is focused on making virtues accessible to the community of parents and educators so that our future, our children can be independently joyous. At the highest level, our purpose is to learn how do we integrate the secular and sacred and give it to parents and learn from that so that we can hopefully go beyond the kul and have a gurukul. A gurukul maybe where Vivekji is there, a gurukul where children can learn and thrive. On a practical level, we are trying to create a community where it is a non-judgmental environment where parents can learn from each other, grow together, essentially a satsanga of parents. We are doing this in two forms. One is the physical centers. We are in the process of opening up Montessori's in Canada, where we can kind of bring these sacred and secular together. At the same time, we are looking at digital in terms of webinars for parents, newsletters, and other resources. In fact, one of our upcoming webinars is about the art of storytelling. Did you know that telling stories is such a brilliant skill to have as a parent? As a parent, you help your child get their cognitive thinking, you help them learn memory, you help them learn how to express themselves so that they can have a better relationship with you. So that's the next upcoming webinar, and we hope to have more of these community forums for parents and educators to come together. Once again, gratitude to Vivekji. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Ricky. And it is inspiring, like how I described what Prakash does, that he has gotten multiple degrees in a field where compensation is not guaranteed. But that's what the world needs. Whenever we think of, what is it called? What's that Venn diagram where you choose a profession? I spoke about it last year. Ikigai, thank you. We always tend to focus on how I'll be paid. But if you remember last year, or maybe it was the year before, I shared that you should choose a profession based on what the world needs. And the world needs more environmental engineers. The world needs more sacred schools. Announcements are complete. We're continuing with our dialogue into our RAD. Your reflection adventure of the day was to design an ideal day week and to make this a contract with yourself. I didn't get to be part of your group discussions. Can I see your contracts, please? Wow, some have stickers on them. Some are highlighted. Some are on toilet paper. My observation on your ideal day, your ideal week, the higher perspective, Satya, is living up to your ideals. This contract is not with anyone, but with yourself. My lower perspective here, happiness is a subjective experience. Remember, I described how hunger is the same way. If I'm hungry and you eat food, that doesn't satisfy my hunger. It makes me more angry that you're eating and I'm hungry. Happiness is a subjective experience, which means practice is demanded, required. So practice what you have designed. Here is your ray, your reflection adventure of the year. I've already shared that the recordings for the Happiness Series 5 will be released on January 1. So a month from right now. Your ray is, since this is our 5th Happiness Series, for an entire year, every day you have to listen to those recordings for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Not the same 5 minutes, okay? You proceed. Satsanga, satsanga. Well, that will work, but that's not the point. So for an entire year, you have to listen to these recordings for 5 minutes a day and not more. For those who are going to take this seriously, only 5 minutes. Now, the sense of bhagya expresses as gratitude. I'm grateful to all of you. You are all seekers, and this has been, for Vivek, the most engaging out of all of the Happiness Series. I don't know why it's not a change from my side, which means it's a change from your side. I've looked forward to every evening, and I'm not sure if you have observed, but in some of these workshops, on day 4, I am very physically and emotionally tired. But I don't feel like that at all right now, even though I've been exercising every day. So physically, I've been doing stuff, and I have 2 kids now. In previous workshops, there was only 1, and before that, none. So it is all of you. And you may not know this term, but satsanga, or all that which helps one grow, is described as muda mangala. Muda means fun, and mangala means fundamental. I feel that all of you have been most engaging. This has been fun, focusing on fundamentals. Nothing that we did was light. I didn't tell you to breathe in and out and look in the mirror and say you're worthy and so on. All of this was transformative, Muda and Mangala. I offer my gratitude to our crew. I have many wishes. I have a wish list, and I give this to the crew. And like genies, they make this wish list possible. That's what this crew is. When I'll share, let's do this through YouTube. And I have no idea why we should do it through YouTube, but they make that possible. Write a summary and email it to everyone. They make that possible. So they're a crew, but they're also genies. These genies are Anvita, Kanchan, Nina, Ragini, Ricky, Rita, Rupa, Soumya, Yatin, And our newest crew member is Sheetal. So we're a team of 10 plus me. So 10 minus me. Instead of plus me, it should be a minus me. I only come up with a wish list. They're the workers. And I offer my gratitude, most importantly, to our tradition of guides. I had shared with all of you that the two qualities that we look for in another person is authenticity and depth. Before Puja Swami Tejo Mayananda came into my life, I very confidently can describe myself as artificial and shallow, the exact opposite of what I was looking for in another person and in me. And through this tradition of guides, through having a personal relationship with a master, the purpose of my life now is to try to grow out of being artificial and to grow into being authentic, to grow out of being shallow and to grow into being deep. This has made every day of my life more interesting. I can't remember the last time I was bored. I think the last time I was bored was in 2005. Before I moved to the ashram, they were all thinking the last time we were bored was 5 minutes ago, not 2005. So my gratitude to the whole tradition of guides that all of us are exposed to, and to allow ourselves to be affected by that. When I drive our children to school, Sheila takes them to school on the weekdays, but sometimes I go or it's a weekend. Then when we leave our driveway, we'll go through a series of cheers. Okay? I'm going to share these in Sanskrit. For those who don't know what I'm saying, just smile. Remember that Ramayana class where you heard the word Rama? What does Rama mean? Joy. So just smile. Sadguru Nath Maharaj ki Jai. Siyavara Ramachandra ki Jai. Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki Jai. Om Namah Parvati Pataye. Har Har Mahadev. Now this is for all of you. Bolo Bhai Sab Santana ki Jai. Santana means those who are practicing what I've just described. The satsanga, the sattva, the satya, the sat. And if we do this, then Aaj ke Ananda ki Jai. That we are joyous for the opportunity that every day brings to us. My prayers to Sri Rama, who is joy, and Sri Krishna, who attracts, that we live up to our ideals. I personally am praying to them to give us the clarity and conviction and confidence to live a day like they live, to feel the joy that they feel. Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.